Everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy February. Welcome to Rethink Your Resume. My name is Jenn Walker Wall. I am a resume writer, career strategist, and founder of Work Wonders Careers. And here we help mission-driven professionals make moves that matter. So I am excited to chat with you all today and share some insights on resumes, one of my absolute favorite topics. And specifically, we're going to be talking about how to rethink your resume. If you are new here and you haven't seen one of my quick little LinkedIn pep talks before, welcome. If you are a repeat viewer, thank you, welcome also. And if you are happening to catch the replay of this, welcome to you as well, of course. And whether you're here live or you are watching the replay, feel free to use the comments and tag me if there's something you'd like me to address or answer during the presentation or afterwards. If you're watching on your own time, I'm happy to come back here and hear your thoughts and questions and try to be as helpful as possible. If applying online has felt like throwing your resume into a black hole, or if it's just been a while since you have been an active job seeker or even thought about your resume, I think you're going to be in for a treat with what I am about to share. If you know me or if you've seen these before, you know I really love resumes, like truly, genuinely think that they are a phenomenally effective tool for job seekers. They can open doors to rooms you are absolutely not close to being in, and they can really help build the case for your candidacy when they are used and created strategically and intentionally. And unfortunately, what really happens is that people really hold on to ideas about resumes that might have been true 15, 20 years ago, or they just hear things on the internet, which sometimes has really good tips and sometimes doesn't. And so I want to talk about rethinking our resumes because I want to visit some of these what I consider myths or misconceptions, and try to help shift your thinking about how to create and use a resume that is strategic, that is intentional, that is purposeful, and above all, that's going to be effective. You know, I got that line about throwing your resume into an internet black hole from someone who attended one of my workshops many years ago, and it really resonates with people. You're often applying all over the place and not hearing back and assuming all sorts of things. So I really want to break that down today, and I want to make sure that I share the way we approach resumes here at Work Wonders Careers, what tried and true processes and strategies have helped our clients use their resumes effectively in their job search. I'll talk about a step that I think is really key. If you are struggling right now to write and update and really optimize your resume, you might be skipping one step. So I'm going to talk about that. You are almost certainly underselling yourself in your resume. So there's probably room there to talk about your work differently. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And I'm just going to try and convince you that this is a tool, your resume, that you should be taking seriously. That's my end goal here. So hopefully in the next 20 or 30 minutes, I will make my case for having you really rethink your resume and want to take it seriously. I'm hosting this pep talk right now because I am actually hosting a workshop later this month for resumes that resonate. So it's going to be an interactive workshop where I will walk you through our Work Wonders resume writing process. And there's even a chance to get a session with me if you'd like some private feedback on your resume. I haven't actually offered this workshop live in like almost 2 years. It's been a couple of years. So I would love to have you join us. If this appeals to you, if you are listening to this and you're thinking, yes, more of this, more detail, more personalized attention, please visit us online at workwonderscareers.com. Check out the workshop. There are limited tickets, so grab one if you want one. But for now, let's dive in here. But before we do that, if you have questions throughout, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you are watching the replay, feel free to post your questions as well. Um, and if you have people in your LinkedIn network, feel free to tag them here in the comments or share this with them. There are a lot of job seekers right now, so feel free to share this little pep talk with anyone who might need it. Okay. So what exactly am I asking you to rethink as part of this process? So I just want to share some of the where I'm going to focus this part. 'Cause I could probably talk about resumes indefinitely. So here's what I'm going to limit myself today to. These are the things that I hear from new clients or potential clients or people in workshops pretty regularly. That the resume needs to be optimized for bots or the ATS or applicant tracking system. So we need to stuff it full of keywords. We need to copy and paste, job descriptions into the resume, that sort of thing. Your resume needs to be 1 page long. So really short, really concise, cram it all in there. There are some people who think their resume is not going to matter because everybody gets a job through their network anyway. That resumes are an outdated relic no one's using anymore. Truly mind-boggling to me that that one exists, but nonetheless, that you should use a graphic template to help convey, to stand out online. Um, so you'll often see things that, there are actual designers who can design their own resume, but there's also a lot of, templates that you can buy. Canva templates come to mind for that sort of thing. And that the way to stand out is to, stand out visually. And something else that I see quite a bit, and I actually see this, with my clients too, that the more content, the more experience you have, the better. That you're really using your resume to capture the breadth of everything, the history of everything, sort of like holding on to your history, with your clenched fists here. And while there might be pieces here from each of these that are sort of that may be helpful to think about, by and large, I don't I don't I don't incorporate any of this into most of the resumes that I write. So I want to kind of go through each one of these points and offer an alternative way of thinking about these common ideas about resumes. The first, this really does feel like a myth to me, this idea that like we need to write a resume to get past ATS bots. Every single part of our resume strategy that we do with and for our clients is about human readers, recruiters, hiring managers, other hiring stakeholders. The ATS system does not really factor into our preparation and execution of a resume much at all. We're thinking about those early readers of your resume and what we can do to make their job as easy as possible. Another reason we don't pay much attention to this ATS bots stuff is that when I was using applicant tracking systems, which is what ATS stands for, that's not what they were doing. There weren't bots that were reviewing resumes and sending messages on my behalf. That might have been that might be great, but like that's not what was going on. I was manually reviewing sometimes hundreds of applicants, and sorting and assessing them from there. Now, I did use features like bulk messaging, but there's no real automation that was helping to distinguish whether or not I would look at your resume. Even when they didn't meet those qualifications with our pre-qualifying questions and they were sorted out, I would have to read those too because people answered them wrong, and people answered them falsely and ended up in the applicant pool. So there really was a ton of manual labor, and the applicant tracking system is something that makes that process a little easier, but it doesn't do it for you. And so there was never a time in the almost 9 years that I've been doing this that I have had a process that's centered around bots or applicant tracking systems. It's all about the human readers. And to that end, I don't really think about adding keywords or using white font to add keywords secretly or to copy and paste job postings in. we want something that is engaging and easy to read, and just cramming as many words in as possible, regardless of whether you've done them before or they're related to your work. That's not what we do here. So, if you are thinking about using your resume to apply for jobs, I want you to think about the person on the other side who, especially right now, is probably seeing an uptick in applicants for roles and has multiple roles that they're recruiting for. And they just need to know as quickly and easily as possible if you're the right person for the job. That is a huge part of that. And I think making that shift to not just thinking about key words, but to thinking about what does this person on the other side need to hear, and really thinking about it relationally will make a big difference in your process. Moving forward, moving on, but with this in mind, right? Like, if we continue to prioritize the human reader, then how we present that information really matters. Now, there's nothing objectively wrong with a one-page resume. If you have very few years of work experience, if you're new to the working world and you've got a one-page resume, that could make all of the sense in the world for you. But once you have 10, 15, 20 years of experience, getting all that information on a single page will simply make your resume, and not just your resume, like your experience, your qualifications, your impact, it will make it unreadable. It will make it too difficult to sift through and easily see what's relevant and if you check the boxes that they're looking for. So if you have been sticking to one page, maybe that's what you've done your whole career, maybe that's what you've been told, I really want you to give yourself permission to consider what your resume would look like if it were 2 pages. Because often what happens when we allow someone, convince someone to go on to a second page is that you now have margins. You now have a healthy size font. You have white space that's going to make your resume so much easier to consume. And that can be a very effective strategy in and of itself sometimes. Following this mode of like thinking about the person on the other end of the process, let's talk about graphic resume templates. I write 100% of our resumes in Google Doc. That's what me and my team use. We use Arial or Calibri font, size of 12, maybe 11, and bold font, the bold version of the font. That's really it. That's really all it takes in most cases. Now, if you are a design professional, I do see there being more leeway for what you can produce. But what's often missing in these graphic resumes, regardless of whether you're a designer or not, is that there isn't enough written content that is A, easy to consume, and B, conveys the impact and qualifications for the job at hand. Oftentimes, the graphic template prioritizes the graphic elements over the content that's most compelling, which is, do you meet the qualifications for this job or not? Sometimes the work experience itself is so consolidated and there's just lists of skills and it feels very disembodied. And, we're reading top down, left to right, and sometimes they're not written in that way. I have had tremendous success recently. Strangely enough, I've had a bunch of clients with graphic resumes. And two of them are not, a couple of them are not design professionals. And we moved them right into a Google Doc. And instantly, they had a lot more traction. They had so much more space to convey their very impressive experience. We had a different way of communicating their qualifications for the role. Like, it just totally changed the nature of their candidacy. And I really encourage you to explore that. Even if you're not ready to like apply using a boring resume, at least see what it looks like, because what it gave us was a lot more room to convey things that matter. And that's what this process is about. And you'll only really understand that if you put yourself in the seat of the recruiter. They may or may not want to know if you have great design skills, but they are definitely going to want to know if you meet the qualifications of the role. And if that's not clear, it's possible not much else will matter. Now, this next piece I'm going to ask you to rethink is really for folks who've been working for some time, 15, 20 years or so, okay? At this point, your resume is probably lengthy. I'm in this category, so I'm speaking for myself, right? I want you to reconsider that you may not need all of your work experience to make the case for you as an applicant or candidate. And that pulling back, consolidating, eliminating, using selected experience instead of, your all of your experience can be really helpful tactics when it comes to maintaining a resume that is relevant and concise and continues to be easy to read and easy to see your qualifications. So again, I'm just going to ask that you put yourself in the seat of the human reader on the other side of the table. They are writing a list of qualifications. That's when they're telling you what they want the person to do this job, what their experience would be to execute it, right? And we want to make sure that we're speaking to that. And we don't necessarily need to include tons of experience that is duplicative or irrelevant. And when you're making pivots and you've got, over a decade of work experience under your belt, some of the work you've done previously will be more relevant than others. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Like, you might not need all of this. So focus on the readability, focus on the relevancy, focus on the experience that makes sense to leverage. And don't make the mistake that more content is always better. Better is better. We want better alignment, better impact, clear qualifications. We don't just want more in terms of content. Like, it should be strategic content. And I think sometimes it's like a safety blanket. Like, I've noticed that when clients, are looking for a job and it takes, longer than they'd like, they add content back onto their resume. That can make sense for like specific roles, where specific experience that wasn't well represented is something that they decide they should add. Like, I could be on board with that plan. But oftentimes it's like part of the strategy. Like, if they just see how much work I've done, they'll pick me. And you really want to defer to the qualifications to have a better sense of that and to decide what to include. That's really what I try to encourage our clients to do. Like, let's look at the qualifications. And maybe you have 30 years of experience doing this, but do we want that on your resume, or do we want to focus on the more recent relevant depth and experience that's there? And that's often where we land. As we begin to wrap up here, I want to discuss the relationship between networking and your resume, because this is something that I don't think people realize. You might be someone who thinks resumes don't matter, connections matter, relationships matter. Um, and I would say these are not mutually exclusive strategies. Really, they're complementary strategies. Even if you have someone internally who is referring you, or if you're just letting your network know that you're looking and sharing your expertise, having a well-written, strategic, optimized resume will help you stand out. It will help them make the case for you. It will help them explain your expertise in case they're not subject matter expertise in your world, and so I see that both of these work best when they work together. So I want you to think, not just about the recruiter or the hiring manager, but like, what do people in your network need from you, in order to help you? And you providing them a really strong resume with really clear qualifications or expertise in a particular area can be really helpful. You don't need to rely on one or the other. Both will open doors for you. Okay. Both will have the power to do that. And it helps to have both of them working for you. As I wrap up here, I just want to share that, like, I don't think resumes are a relic. I don't really see them going anywhere. And I have been doing this for quite some time. I don't really see much difference, in how we're approaching them now than we were a few years ago. But what I think is really important to know as more people start their job search now is that resumes are a marketing tool. They are going to be more effective when you keep the audience in mind. And this is like a mindset shift, because a lot of times people feel like this is a document about me. This is my professional biography. And you can absolutely have some version of a resume that is comprehensive, very holistic. That makes a lot of sense. But when it comes to applying, it's a marketing tool. And like a marketer, you want to use good strategies. You want to use message segmentation. You want to use compelling copy. You want to show, not tell, right? So I want you to really sort of think about adopting that mindset and really putting yourself in the other seat where you have tons of applications and you're hiring for more than one position and you're already busy in the job that you have, right? How can we make the reader's job easier? Will help unlock a process that will get you traction in your resume. At least that's my experience over the last few years. And because we don't own the resume in that way, because it's ultimately not for us as professionals so much as it's for our job search goals and the target roles that we're applying for and the folks who are reading it on the other side. I want to remind you about the part of the process that is yours, the sort of behind the scenes process. Because if you are struggling to update or optimize or make edits to your resume in a way that feels easy and like a true improvement, I want you to take the time to do the proper reflection and preparation. This is where you will understand what work you have actually done, the impact of the work you have actually done. And if you skip this part, you could end up in a place where you are underselling yourself, which is really common. So I want you to take the time to own the behind the scenes process, the reflection and the preparation, to really examine target roles and understand what they're asking for and reverse engineer assets like your resume and LinkedIn that will speak to them strategically. That's the part for us to own here. And there's a lot of leeway there. I also want to encourage you to really hold space to give yourself feedback. If you're feeling overwhelmed, burned out, exhausted, unappreciated, it's like super hard to jump into job search mode and like feel great about the work that you're sharing. So again, I think having a behind the scenes process for the reflection and the preparation will allow you to sort of sift through this and figure out how to extract as much of the good and the impact and the pieces that are compelling from your experience, even if your experience wasn't rewarding, or didn't feel great. We can extract the best from that and use it to move you forward in a way that's more aligned and more positive and, represents what you need and still gives you credit for the work that you've done. Taking this time will make revising and tailoring your resume a lot easier. Having a here's my preparation phase, okay, here's my revision phase. Those are two different steps in our job search framework for a reason. So I really want to encourage you as you're kind of reflecting on this conversation today to do some internal work that does not necessarily ultimately need to be reflected on your resume, which is the external part of this, right? Take your time, figure out what's important to say, give yourself permission to articulate and optimize your own experience and assess what it is that people want to hear based on your target roles, and work on using your resume to bring those things into alignment to make them synergistic with one another. That's going to be the magic sauce. That's going to help you stand out online. The specificity of your experience, especially as you acquire more experience, is probably going to be really helpful. So pay attention to those things. And if you are someone making tweaks and tailoring your resume and using the customization, but you feel like it's not working, this is another opportunity to really rethink, like, how can I really transform my resume? Sometimes those small tweaks are just not enough. So I will see people who are like, I'm changing a word here and there. But if you are someone with a generalist background and you really want to be specific, like sometimes small tweaks just aren't enough. And it's not really anything about you or your experience. It's how you're sharing it. So practice, preparation, and then revision can go a really long way. All right, so that's my presentation for today. If anyone would like to drop questions in the chat, I will be happy to answer. Feel free to tag me and I'll come back after I wrap up here. And I do want to invite anyone who is interested in having some direct feedback and like a more structured process for approaching your own revision process to join us later this month at Resumes That Resonate. You can grab tickets online. Our website link is in the chat for you, so feel free to reach out if that's of interest. Otherwise, I'm going to let you get back to your day. Thanks for joining me for this lunchtime chat, and I will talk to you soon.